Some discoveries arrive like thunder, loud, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. Others slip in quietly, disguised as ordinary moments, hiding their devastation behind the mundane. Mine came folded inside a jacket pocket, tucked between a gas station receipt and a crumpled tissue. A small piece of paper that would unravel 10 years of marriage in the time it took me to read 3 lines. Brennan's Fine Jewelers. 18K white gold diamond solitaire, 1.5 carats. $12,400. I stood in our laundry room, the washing machine humming behind me, staring at numbers that made no sense. $12,400. For an engagement ring. But my husband had already proposed to me. 10 years ago, on a beach in Florida, with a ring that had cost him 3 months' salary at the time, maybe $4,000, which had felt like a fortune back then. That ring was on my finger right now. The same ring I had worn every day since he slipped it on, promising me forever. So who is this ring for? My name is Vivian Porter. I'm 38 years old, a high school English teacher, married to Raymond Porter for 10 years. We have 2 children, our daughter Zoe, who's 8, and our son Caleb, who's 6. From the outside, our life looked exactly like what we had planned when we were young and in love and full of dreams. A house in a good school district, 2 healthy kids, careers we were proud of, date nights when we could manage them. The kind of solid, dependable happiness that doesn't make headlines but sustains a life. Raymond was a good husband, or at least I had always believed he was. He worked as a financial consultant, putting in long hours but always making time for family dinners when he could. He coached Caleb's little league team. He helped Zoe with her math homework. He told me he loved me every night before we fell asleep. He was present, reliable, steady. And apparently, he was shopping for engagement rings that weren't for me. I didn't confront him immediately. I know some women would have marched into the living room where he was watching football, thrust the receipt in his face, and demanded an explanation. But I've never been that woman. I'm the one who thinks before she speaks, who gathers information before she acts, who learned, growing up with a volatile father, that emotional reactions rarely lead anywhere good. So I folded the receipt carefully and put it in my pocket. I finished the laundry. I made dinner. I helped the kids with their homework and tucked them into bed. And all the while, my mind was racing. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the ring was for someone else, a family member, a friend. Maybe Raymond was helping someone with a purchase, or holding money for a colleague, or involved in some completely innocent transaction that would make me laugh at my own paranoia. But even as I constructed these possibilities, I knew they didn't fit. The receipt was from 3 weeks ago. Raymond hadn't mentioned anything about rings or jewelry or helping anyone with a major purchase. And $12,400 was not the kind of money that moved through our accounts without discussion. Unless he had hidden it from me. Unless there were other things he was hiding too. That night, I lay in bed next to my husband and felt like a stranger. He was watching something on his phone, the blue light illuminating his face in the darkness. The same face I had woken up next to for 10 years. The same face I had promised to love until death parted us. "Everything okay?" he asked, glancing over at me. "You've been quiet tonight." "Just tired. Long day at school." "The kid's wearing you out." "Always." He smiled and leaned over to kiss my forehead. "Get some rest. I love you." "I love you too." The words came out automatically, muscle memory from a decade of marriage, but they felt hollow now, contaminated by the receipt burning a hole in my nightstand drawer. I waited until his breathing deepened into sleep. Then I carefully, quietly, reached for his phone. The password was the same one he'd used for years, our anniversary date. He had never been secretive about his phone, had never angled it away from me or jumped when I walked into a room while he was texting. At least, not that I had noticed. I opened his messages, my heart pounding so loud I was sure it would wake him. Nothing suspicious. Texts to me, to his mother, to his college friends. Work emails about spreadsheets and client meetings. Everything normal, everything innocent. I checked his email next, his photos, his call history. Nothing. Either Raymond was the most innocent man alive, or he was very, very good at covering his tracks. The next morning, I called my sister. Diane was 2 years older than me, a divorce attorney who had seen every variety of marital betrayal. She was also the only person I trusted to tell me the truth, even when the truth was painful. "Slow down," she said when I finished explaining. "You found a receipt for an engagement ring. That's all you have right now." A $12,400 engagement ring, Diane, that he never mentioned, that I know nothing about. And there's nothing else. No suspicious behavior, no late nights, no unexplained absences. I thought about it. He's been working more lately, but he always works a lot. It's tax season. Any changes in the bedroom, and how he treats you? No, everything's been normal. That's what's so confusing. Diane was quiet for a moment. "Here's what I want you to do. Don't confront him yet. Start paying attention. Document everything, his schedule, his expenses, anything that seems off. If something's going on, patterns will emerge. And if nothing emerges, then maybe there's an innocent explanation. Maybe he's planning some kind of surprise for you. With an engagement ring, we're already married. People renew vows, upgrade rings. Maybe he's planning something romantic." I wanted to believe that. I wanted it to be true so badly that I could almost convince myself. But something in my gut, that deep, animal instinct that knows when danger is near, told me this was not about romance. This was about betrayal. I became a detective in my own marriage. For 2 weeks, I watched Raymond with new eyes. I noted when he left for work and when he came home. I tracked our credit card statements and bank accounts, looking for discrepancies. I paid attention to his phone calls, his moods, the way he looked at me or didn't. And slowly, patterns began to emerge. He was working late more often than usual, not every night, but 2 or 3 times a week. When I called his office on those evenings, he didn't always answer. When he did, he sounded distracted, rushed, eager to get off the phone. His credit card showed charges I didn't recognize. A restaurant downtown I had never been to. A hotel charge that he claimed was for a client meeting. A florist, flowers that had never arrived at our house. And his phone, which he had always left casually on the counter or the coffee table, now stayed in his pocket. Always within reach, always face down. "You're being paranoid," I told myself. "You're seeing patterns that aren't there. You're going to destroy your marriage with baseless suspicions." But then I found the second receipt. It was a Thursday afternoon. Raymond had left his briefcase in the car, and I was bringing it inside for him when it fell open, scattering papers across the garage floor. As I gathered them, one document caught my eye. A lease agreement for an apartment on the other side of town. A 1-bedroom unit that had been rented 3 months ago. In Raymond's name. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely read the words. The apartment was in a nice building, not luxurious, but comfortable. The rent was $1,800 a month. The lease was for 12 months with automatic renewal. 3 months. He had been paying for this apartment for 3 months, and I had never known it existed. Why would a married man with a house and a family need a secret apartment? The answer was obvious. I just didn't want to admit it. I didn't confront Raymond that night either. Instead, I drove to the apartment building the next day, while the kids were at school and Raymond was supposedly at work. I sat in my car across the street and watched. For 3 hours, I watched. I saw residents come and go. I saw a maintenance worker fixing something on the second floor. I saw nothing that told me what my husband was doing with this secret space. But then, just as I was about to give up and drive home, I saw something that stopped my heart. Raymond's car, pulling into the parking garage beneath the building. In the middle of a workday, when he was supposed to be at his office, meeting with clients, doing the job that paid our mortgage. He wasn't alone. A woman was in the passenger seat, young, maybe late 20s, beautiful. With dark hair and a bright smile, I could see even from across the street. They parked and got out of the car. Raymond walked around to her side, took her hand, and they walked toward the elevator together. Not like colleagues, not like friends. Like lovers. I don't remember driving home. I must have, because I found myself in my driveway, engine still running, staring at the house where I had built my life. The house where I had brought my Bobbies home from the hospital. The house where I had believed I was loved and safe and permanent. All of it was a lie. My husband had another woman. A young, beautiful woman he kept in a secret apartment. A woman he was planning to propose to with a $12,400 ring. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my husband, my future, it was all fiction. A story Raymond had been telling me while living an entirely different life. The engine was still running. The steering wheel was slick with my sweat. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice was asking a question I couldn't answer. What do I do now? I sat in that driveway for 45 minutes. The engine eventually turned off. I must have done it automatically, muscle memory taking over when my conscious mind had checked out entirely. I stared at the front door of my house, at the wreath I had hung last month, at the welcome mat that said the Porters in cheerful script. The Porters, as if we were a unit, a team, a family that would endure. But there was another woman now, a woman with dark hair and a bright smile, a woman Raymond held hands with, a woman he was going to propose to while still married to me. How long had this been going on? Months? Years? Had he been living this double life the entire time we were together, or was this something new, a midlife crisis, a moment of weakness that had spiraled out of control? Did it matter? Did the timeline change anything about the betrayal? No, it didn't. My phone buzzed, a text from Raymond. Running late tonight. Client dinner. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. The words that used to make me smile now felt like mockery, like a joke he was telling at my expense. I texted back, okay, be safe. Be safe. What I really wanted to say was, I know, I saw you, I saw her, I saw everything. But I didn't, because Diane's voice was in my head, reminding me that information was power. That confrontation without preparation was a mistake, that I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with before I made any moves. So I got out of the car, walked into my house, and began planning the end of my marriage. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and started documenting everything. The first receipt for the engagement ring, photographed and saved. The lease agreement for the apartment, photographed and saved. The credit card charges I had flagged over the past 2 weeks, screenshotted and saved. The hotel charge, the restaurant, the florist, all the small pieces that added up to a picture of infidelity. And then I went deeper. I accessed our shared financial accounts, checking, savings, investments. Raymond handled most of our finances, a division of labor I had never questioned. He was a financial consultant, after all. It made sense for him to manage our money. Now I wondered what else that arrangement had allowed him to hide. It took me 2 hours to untangle what he had done. Over the past year, Raymond had siphoned off nearly $80,000 from our accounts. Not in large chunks that would raise red flags, but in small, steady amounts. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Money he had claimed was going to investments or retirement contributions or tax payments. Money that had actually been funding his other life. The apartment rent, the expensive dinners, the jewelry, the lifestyle of a man who was courting another woman while his wife packed lunches and helped with homework at home. $80,000, nearly a third of our total savings. He had been stealing from our family to finance his affair. I called Diane at midnight. I need a lawyer, I said when she answered, her voice groggy with sleep. A good one, the best. Vivian, what happened? Did you find something? I found everything. He has an apartment, another woman. He's been draining our accounts for a year, and he bought an engagement ring he's planning to propose to her, Diane, while we're still married. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, "I'll text you a name in the morning, Patricia Chen. She's the best divorce attorney in the state. Tell her I referred you." Divorce! The word felt foreign in my mouth. Impossible. Divorce happened to other people. People whose marriages had always been troubled. Not to me, not to us. "I'm sorry, Vive. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, but you need to protect yourself. And the kids." The kids? I felt tears welling up for the first time since the driveway. How am I supposed to tell them? How do I explain that they're father? One step at a time. First, you get a lawyer. Then you figure out your options. Then, and only then, do you worry about what to tell the children. What if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation? An explanation for $80,000 in hidden spending, for a secret apartment, for a woman he's holding hands with in parking garages. Diane's voice was gentle but firm. "There's no innocent explanation, honey. I wish there were, but there isn't." I knew she was right. I had known since the moment I saw him with her. But some part of me had still been hopping for a miracle, for some revelation that would make it all make sense without destroying everything. That hope died on the phone with my sister. "Get some sleep if you can," Diane said. "Tomorrow, everything changes." She was right about that, too. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the darkness of my living room, looking at photographs I had pulled from the shelf. Our wedding day, Raymond in his rented tux, me in my mother's altered dress, both of us beaming with the certainty that we had found our forever. The birth of Zoe, Raymond cutting the umbilical cord with tears streaming down his face, promising our daughter that he would always protect her. Caleb's first birthday, cake smeared across his chubby cheeks, Raymond laughing as he tried to keep our toddler from destroying the entire table. 10 years of memories, 10 years of what I had believed was a good marriage, a real marriage. Had any of it been real? Or had Raymond been performing the whole time, playing the role of devoted husband while his heart was elsewhere? I thought about the early years, when we were young and struggling, and so in love it felt like drowning. He had worked 2 jobs to support us while I finished my teaching credential. He had rubbed my swollen feet when I was pregnant with Zoe. He had held me when my mother died and never complained about the months of grief that followed. That man had loved me, I was certain of it. But somewhere along the way, that man had disappeared, been replaced by someone who could look me in the eye every day and lie, who could kiss me goodbye in the morning and then drive to another woman's apartment, who could plan a proposal while his wedding ring was still on his finger. When had the change happened, and how had I missed it? Raymond came home at 11 p.m. I heard his car in the driveway, his key in the lock, his footsteps in the hallway. He moved quietly, trying not to wake me, consideration that now felt like part of the performance. He didn't know I was sitting in the dark living room, didn't see me watching as he set down his briefcase, loosened his tie, poured himself a whiskey from the cabinet. Long day. He jumped, nearly dropping the glass. "Jesus, Vive, you scared me. What are you doing up?" "Couldn't sleep." "Everything okay?" He crossed to me, his face a mask of concern. "You look pale. Are you feeling sick?" I looked up at him, this man I had shared a bed with for a decade. This man who had held my hand through labor, who had danced with me at our wedding, who had promised to love me until death parted us. This stranger. Who is she? The question came out before I could stop it. So much for careful planning. So much for gathering information. The words simply escaped, propelled by exhaustion and grief and a need to know that overwhelmed all my strategic instincts. Raymond froze. His face went through a series of expressions, confusion, fear, calculation, before settling into careful neutrality. "Who is who? What are you talking about?" "The woman in the apartment. The one you spent the afternoon with. The one you're buying a $12,400 engagement ring for." His neutrality cracked. I saw the exact moment he realized I knew, the way his eyes widened, the way the blood drained from his face, the way his hand tightened around the whiskey glass. "Vivian, I can explain." Can you explain why you have a secret apartment? Why you've stolen $80,000 from our family. Why you're planning to propose to another woman while you're still married to me. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, Raymond. Tell me what possible explanation exists that makes any of this okay. He was silent. The whiskey glass trembled in his hand. That's what I thought. The argument that followed was the worst of our marriage. Not because of yelling, though there was some of that. Not because of threats or accusations, though those came too, but because of the lies. Even now, even caught, even facing evidence he couldn't deny, Raymond kept lying. The apartment was for a friend going through a divorce. The woman was a colleague he was mentoring. The money was invested in a business opportunity he was keeping secret as a surprise. The engagement ring was for his sister's wedding. Each explanation more absurd than the last. Each lie more insulting to my intelligence. Do you think I'm stupid? I finally asked, my voice gone cold with exhaustion. Do you think I haven't done my research? Your sister isn't engaged. You don't have any friends going through divorce. And that woman wasn't looking at you like a colleague, she was looking at you like a lover. Raymond set down his glass. Something shifted in his expression, the fight draining out of him, replaced by a resignation that was almost worse than the lies. Her name is Meredith, he said quietly. I met her 18 months ago at a conference in Chicago. 18 months, nearly 2 years, 2 years of deception. I didn't plan for it to happen, it just did. She was there and she was beautiful and she listened to me in a way that... Don't, my voice was a blade. Don't you dare make this about what I wasn't giving you. Don't you dare blame me for your choice to cheat. I'm not blaming you, I'm trying to explain. There's nothing to explain. You fell in love with someone else, you spent our money on her, you're planning to marry her. Those are facts. The only thing I need to understand is what happens now. Raymond looked at me for a long moment, and then he said something I never expected. I'm leaving, Vivian. I'm moving out. I want a divorce. I should have been devastated. I should have begged him to stay, to choose our family, to give us another chance. That's what I would have expected myself to do, the good wife, the dedicated mother, the woman who always fought for what mattered. But sitting there, looking at the man who had betrayed me in every possible way, I felt something different. Relief. Because if he was leaving, that meant I didn't have to make the decision. I didn't have to be the one who broke up our family. I didn't have to carry the guilt of choosing divorce. He was choosing it for me. Fine, I said, and my voice was steady, stronger than I felt. But we're doing this my way. You don't get to drain our accounts and walk away. You don't get to leave me with nothing while you start your new life with her. Vivian, be reasonable. Reasonable? You stole $80,000 from our family. You're abandoning your children for a woman half your age. And you want me to be reasonable. I stood, drawing myself up to my full height. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to move out tonight. You're going to keep paying the mortgage and the bills until the divorce is finalized. And you're going to give me full custody of the children because you obviously have no interest in being a real father to them. I love my children. You love the idea of them, the fantasy of being a family man, but you don't love them enough to stay. You don't love them enough to choose them over your mistress. Raymond flinched at the word. Good, I wanted him to flinch. Pack a bag and go. I'll have my lawyer contact yours in the morning. This isn't how I wanted this to go. You lost the right to decide how things go the moment you started sleeping with someone else. Now get out of my house. He went. The first week was the hardest. Not because I missed Raymond, I was too angry for that, but because I had to explain to my children why their father wasn't coming home. Zoe was 8, old enough to understand that something was seriously wrong, old enough to ask questions I didn't know how to answer. Where's Daddy? She asked the morning after he left. His car isn't in the driveway. Daddy had to go away for a while, sweetheart, for work. But he didn't say goodbye. I pulled her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. I know, he was in a hurry, but he loves you very much. That hasn't changed. The lie burned in my throat. Raymond did love his children. I believed that, even now. But he didn't love them enough. Didn't love them more than he loved his new life with Meredith. Caleb was easier. At 6, he was more adaptable, more willing to accept simple explanations. Daddy's on a trip satisfied him for now, but I knew harder conversations were coming. When do you tell your children that their father is a cheater? That he abandoned them for another woman? That the family they trusted was built on a foundation of lies? I didn't have answers. I just had to get through each day. Patricia Chen's office was on the 23rd floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and chrome, and the unmistakable scent of expensive legal power. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. Diane had warned me that Patricia was intimidating, but I wasn't prepared for the laser focus she directed at me the moment I sat down. "Tell me everything," she said. "From the beginning, don't leave anything out." So I did. The receipt for the engagement ring, the investigation, the apartment, the woman, the $80,000 Raymond had stolen from our accounts, the confrontation, his departure. Patricia listened without interrupting, making occasional notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Your husband is an idiot." I blinked. "Excuse me." "He's a financial consultant who left a paper trail a first-year law student could follow. He's claiming he wants a divorce while he's still actively hiding assets and planning a bigamous marriage. And he left the marital home, giving you de facto possession." She smiled grimly. "If he were my client, I would tell him he's already lost." "What does that mean for me?" "It means we're going to take him for everything he has, and everything he was planning to give to his girlfriend." She opened a folder on her desk, spreading documents across the surface. "Here's what I need from you. Complete financial records, bank statements, tax returns, investment accounts, credit card statements. Everything you can access. I'll subpoena what you can't." "I've already started gathering documentation." "Good. I'll also need a list of all marital assets. House, cars, retirement accounts, anything of value. And any evidence of his affair, photographs, receipts, the lease agreement for the apartment." "I have all of that." Patricia nodded approvingly. "You've done your homework. That's going to make this much easier." "What about the children? Raymond said he wants to be in their lives." "What he wants and what he gets are two different things. He abandoned the marital home. He's been conducting an affair for 18 months. He's planning to marry someone else before he's even divorced from you. No judge is going to look favorably on that. I don't want to keep them from their father entirely. Despite everything, they love him." "That's your choice to make, but I'd recommend starting from a position of strength. Primary custody with you, supervised visitation for him. We can always negotiate from there." Supervised visitation. For the man who had coached Little League and attended every school play. The man who used to carry Caleb on his shoulders through the park. How had we gotten here? Raymond called that evening. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me, the part that had been his wife for 10 years, couldn't ignore him entirely. "Vivian," his voice was tired, drained of the defensive anger from our confrontation. "We need to talk." "My lawyer will be contacting yours." "I don't want this to get ugly. We can figure this out between ourselves." "Like we figured out the $80,000 you stole. Like we figured out the apartment you've been paying for with our children's college fund." Silence. "I made mistakes," he finally said. "I know that, but I'm still the father of your children. I'm still." "You're still the man who lied to me every day for 18 months. Who kissed me goodbye every morning and then went to another woman's bed. Who bought her an engagement ring while your wedding ring was still on your finger." "Vivian." "The ring, Raymond. Did you propose to her yet? Or were you waiting until the divorce was finalized, trying to maintain some shred of propriety?" More silence, then quietly. "I was going to wait. I wanted to do this the right way." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that didn't feel like it came from me. "The right way? There is no right way to abandon your family for a younger woman. There's no right way to steal from your wife and children. You passed right about 18 months ago when you decided that your vows meant nothing. I still love the kids. Then you should have thought about them before you started this. Every choice you made, every lie you told, every dollar you spent on her, those were choices against them, against us. You don't get to claim love now. Love is what you do, not what you feel. And what you did was betray everyone who trusted you. I was crying now. I hadn't meant to. I had wanted to stay strong, cold, in control. But the dam had broken. I don't want to fight you, Raymond. I don't have the energy for a war. But I'm not going to make this easy for you either. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. I hung up before he could respond. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal documents, financial excavations, and single parenting struggles. Patricia Chen was relentless. She subpoenaed Raymond's financial records and discovered even more hidden accounts. Another $40,000 he had squirreled away in preparation for his new life. She documented his affair with Meredith, building a case that painted him as exactly what he was, a faithless husband who had systematically looted his family's resources. Raymond's lawyer tried to negotiate. They proposed a 50-50 split of assets, joint custody, a collaborative divorce that would minimize conflict. Patricia laughed them out of her office. He stole over $100,000 from marital assets, she told me after the meeting. He's been conducting an affair for 18 months. He abandoned the family home. In what universe does he deserve 50%? What are you proposing? Everything, the house, primary custody, 70% of remaining assets, and full reimbursement for what he diverted to his girlfriend. He'll never agree to that. He will if he wants to avoid a public trial. The evidence we have, the apartment lease, the engagement ring receipt, the financial records, all of it would be entered into public record. His professional reputation would be destroyed. Would that matter to him? He's a financial consultant. His entire career is based on trust. If his clients find out he stole from his own family, how many of them will want him handling their money? I hadn't thought of that angle. Raymond's career had always been untouchable, a source of stability and pride. Now it was a vulnerability. So we're leveraging his professional reputation. We're using every tool available. That's how this works, Vivian. He chose to fight dirty. We fight dirtier. While Patricia waged legal warfare, I focused on surviving. The kids were struggling. Zoe had stopped sleeping through the night, waking with nightmares she couldn't explain. Caleb had become clingy, refusing to let me out of his sight. Both of them asked about their father constantly, when he was coming home, why he didn't call more, whether he still loved them. Raymond did call them. Once a week on Wednesday evenings, his voice careful and cheerful through the phone. He took them for lunch on Saturdays, a supervised visit that Patricia had negotiated. He showed up on time, stayed for the allotted 2 hours, and returned them with gifts and promises. But it wasn't enough. It could never be enough. Why can't Daddy live with us anymore? Zoe asked one night when I was tucking her in. I had prepared for this question, had rehearsed answers that were honest without being damaging, that protected them without lying. But looking at my daughter's face, so confused, so hurt, so desperately wanting something I couldn't give her, all my prepared words evaporated. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt other people, I said carefully. Even when they don't mean to, Daddy made some choices that hurt me, and that's why we can't live together anymore. What kind of choices? That's something you'll understand when you're older. For now, all you need to know is that both Daddy and I love you very much. That will never change. But if he loves us, why did he leave? The question pierced my heart. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that love isn't always enough? That people can love their children and still prioritize their own selfish desires? That the father she adored had chosen someone else over her? Sometimes people make mistakes, baby, even people who love us. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. None of this is your fault. I miss him. I know you do, and you'll still see him. He's still your daddy. That's not going to change. She fell asleep eventually, her small hand clutching mine. I stayed beside her long after her breathing deepened, thinking about all the damage Raymond had done. Not just to me, to them, to these innocent children who had done nothing wrong but love their father. That was the unforgivable part. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had wounded them, wounds that might never fully heal. 3 months after Raymond moved out, I received an unexpected phone call. The number wasn't in my contacts, but something made me answer anyway. Is this Vivian Porter? Yes, who's calling? A pause, then. My name is Meredith Collins. I think we need to talk. I almost hung up. Every instinct screamed at me to end the call, to refuse to engage with the woman who had helped destroy my marriage. What could she possibly have to say that I would want to hear? But curiosity won out over anger. Talk about what? About Raymond, about what he's been doing. Her voice was strained, uncertain. I know you have every reason to hate me, but I think you need to know the truth. I already know the truth. My husband had an affair with you. He's been funding your lifestyle with my family's money. He bought you an engagement ring while we were still married. That's true, all of it, but that's not the whole truth. She took a shaky breath. Can we meet in person? There are things I need to show you, things that change everything. Why would I trust anything you have to say? Because I just found out that I'm not the only one. The words hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean, you're not the only one? I mean there are others, other women, other apartments. Raymond has been playing all of us, you, me, God knows who else. Her voice cracked. I thought I was special. I thought he loved me, but I was just another mark in whatever game he's been running. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Where do you want to meet? We met at a coffee shop on the far side of town. I chose the location deliberately, somewhere I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. The last thing I needed was gossip spreading about me meeting my husband's mistress in public. Meredith was already there when I arrived. She looked different from what I had glimpsed in that parking garage, smaller somehow, less radiant. Dark circles under her eyes, hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't touched. She was younger than me by at least a decade, pretty in an obvious way, with the kind of features that would turn heads in a crowded room. I understood why Raymond had been attracted to her. I hated her for it, even as I recognized the pettiness of that hatred. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I know this must be. Let's skip the pleasantries. You said there were things I needed to know, things that change everything. Start talking. She flinched at my tone, but nodded. I met Raymond at a conference 18 months ago. He told me he was separated, that his marriage had been over for years, that he was just waiting for the right time to file for divorce because of the children. Classic cheater script. I know that now, but at the time, she shook her head. He was so convincing, so romantic, he made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. He was good at that. He moved me into the apartment 6 months ago, said it was temporary until his divorce was finalized. He proposed 3 weeks ago. I said yes. She laughed bitterly. I actually believed we were going to be happy. What changed? Meredith reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Last week, I was looking for a document in his briefcase. Instead, I found these. She slid the folder across the table. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Raymond with different women in restaurants, in hotel lobbies, in what looked like other apartments. Different women in every photo, blondes and brunettes. Young and middle-aged, all of them looking at him with the same expression I recognized. Love, trust, the belief that they were special. I don't understand, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Who are these women? I've identified 3 of them so far. Meredith pulled out a separate sheet of paper. Rebecca Chen lives in an apartment on Westfield Avenue. Michelle Torres has a place near the financial district. And someone named Danielle, I don't have her last name yet. I stared at the photographs. Raymond smiling with Rebecca. Raymond holding hands with Michelle. Raymond kissing Danielle in what looked like a hotel room. He has apartments for all of them. At least 2 that I've confirmed. The lease agreements were in the folder with the photos. My mind was reeling. One affair was devastating, but this wasn't an affair. This was a system, a pattern, a man who had been running multiple relationships simultaneously, funding them all from accounts I thought were ours. How much money? I asked. Total, all of them combined. I don't know exactly, but based on the lease agreements I found, at least another $150,000 over the past few years. $150,000, plus the $80,000 I had already discovered, plus the $40,000 Patricia had found in hidden accounts. Nearly $300,000, almost everything we had saved during our marriage. He's been stealing from all of us, Meredith said quietly. Playing all of us, building this elaborate fantasy life while we all thought we were special. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm furious. Because I feel like a fool. Because when I found out about you, really found out, not just the separated wife story he told me, I realized I wasn't the exception. I was just another victim. She reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. I know you have every reason to hate me. I participated in destroying your marriage, even if I didn't know the truth. But now that I do know, I want to help you destroy him. I brought the folder to Patricia Chen the next morning. She spread the photographs across her conference table, her expression growing darker with each image. These women, she said, do you have contact information for any of them? Meredith is tracking them down. She's been pretending to still be with Raymond, gathering information. That's risky. She wants revenge as badly as I do. Patricia studied me carefully. This changes our strategy significantly. We're not just dealing with an affair anymore. We're dealing with what appears to be systematic fraud, multiple relationships, multiple secret residences, hundreds of thousands of dollars in diverted assets. Is that criminal? Potentially. Financial fraud within a marriage is grounds for civil action. And if he's been taking money from these other women under false pretenses, that could be prosecuted as theft by deception. I want him ruined, I said, surprising myself with the coldness in my voice. Not just divorced, ruined. I want him to lose everything. That's understandable, but we need to be strategic about this. Patricia leaned back in her chair. If we bring criminal charges, the divorce proceedings could be delayed while investigations proceed. And criminal cases are harder to control. Prosecutors make decisions based on what they can prove, not what we want. So what do you recommend? We bring the other women on board, build a coalition, file coordinated civil suits that expose the pattern of behavior and maximize the financial recovery. Once that's done, we can decide whether to pursue criminal charges. And his professional reputation. Once the civil suits are filed, everything becomes public record. His clients will find out. His colleagues will find out. His entire professional world will see exactly who Raymond Porter really is. I thought about the man I had married. The man who had coached Little League and danced with me at our wedding. The man who had whispered, "I love you," every night while living a completely fabricated life. Do it, I said. All of it. I want him to feel what it's like to have everything taken away. Over the next month, Meredith and I became unlikely allies. It was strange, becoming close to the woman who had been sleeping with my husband. But our shared anger created a bond that transcended the circumstances of our meeting. We were both victims. We had both been lied to, manipulated, used, and we both wanted justice. Together, we tracked down the other women. Rebecca Chen was the first. She was 32, a marketing executive, and she had been seeing Raymond for nearly 3 years, longer than Meredith. She had her own apartment that he paid for, her own collection of lies he had told, her own devastation when Meredith and I showed up at her door with photographs. 3 years, she kept saying, staring at the evidence we laid out. 3 years I believed him. I turned down other men. I waited for him to leave his wife. And the whole time there were at least 4 of us, Meredith said gently. Maybe more. Michelle Torres was next. She was younger, only 26, and her relationship with Raymond had only been going on for about a year. She was the most resistant to believing us, clinging to the fiction that she was special, that their love was different. It took 2 hours of evidence, photographs, lease agreements, financial records, before she finally broke. "I thought he was going to marry me," she sobbed. "He said as soon as his divorce was finalized." "He said that to all of us," I replied, feeling my anger give way to something closer to pity. "It's his script, his pattern. You're not special to him. None of us were." Finding Danielle proved more difficult. She seemed to have disappeared. Perhaps she had already discovered the truth and fled. But we had enough without her. 4 women, 4 apartments, 4 separate lives Raymond had been maintaining simultaneously. The logistics alone were staggering. How had he managed it? How had he found the time, the energy, the capacity for deception required to keep all these balls in the air? And how had none of us seen through it? The answer, I eventually realized, was that Raymond was a sociopath. Not a Hollywood sociopath, no dramatic violence, no obvious menace, but the clinical kind, someone completely lacking in empathy, capable of mimicking emotions he didn't feel, able to lie without guilt or remorse. Looking back, I could see the signs I had missed. The way his expressions sometimes seemed slightly off, like an actor hitting his marks a beat too late. The way he could pivot from anger to charm in an instant. The way he never seemed genuinely affected by anything outside his immediate interests. I had mistaken his calm for stability, his smooth responses for emotional intelligence, his attentiveness for love. But it was all performance, a mask he wore to get what he wanted. "He never loved any of us," Rebecca said during one of our group meetings. We had started gathering regularly, the 4 of us, planning our coordinated assault. "He's not capable of love, he just knows how to fake it." "Then what does he want?" Michelle asked. "If not love, what's the point of all this?" "Control," I answered, the realization crystallizing as I spoke. "He wants to feel powerful, special, like he's the center of multiple universes. Every woman he deceives is a validation of his superiority." "That's sick." "Yes, it is." Meredith shook her head slowly. "I keep thinking about the engagement ring. He was going to propose to me while maintaining relationships with all of you. What was his endgame? How long did he think he could keep this going?" "Probably forever," I said. "People like Raymond don't think in terms of consequences. They think in terms of what they can get away with. And he was getting away with it, for years, if I hadn't found that receipt. If I hadn't found that receipt. If his jacket hadn't been in the laundry pile. If I had been a little less observant, a little more trusting. He would still be doing it, still lying to all of us, still building his empire of deception on the foundation of our broken hearts. He would have kept going until someone stopped him," Rebecca said. "So we stop him. We stop him hard enough that he can never do this to anyone else." "That's the plan," I agreed. "That's exactly the plan." The civil suits were filed on a Tuesday morning. Patricia Chen coordinated with lawyers representing the other 3 women. All 4 suits were filed simultaneously, creating a wave of legal action that would be impossible to ignore. The charges were comprehensive: fraud, theft by deception, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We sought recovery of all funds Raymond had diverted, plus punitive damages, plus legal fees. The combined amount exceeded $2 million. Raymond's lawyer called Patricia within hours. "He wants to negotiate," she told me after the call. "He's offering a settlement, half of what we're asking, in exchange for dropping all charges and signing non-disclosure agreements." Non-disclosure agreements. He doesn't want this becoming public. He's terrified of what happens to his career if his clients find out. "Good," I said. "He should be terrified." "So you want to reject the settlement?" "I want a counteroffer, full amount, no NDAs, and a public acknowledgement of what he did." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "That's aggressive." "He ran a systematic fraud against at least 4 women for years. He stole hundreds of thousands of dollars. He has children who will eventually learn what kind of man their father is." I met her eyes steadily. I'm not interested in protecting his reputation. I'm interested in truth. Even if it means a trial. Even if it means a trial. Raymond called me that night. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me, perhaps the part that had been his wife for a decade, wanted to hear what he would say. Vivian, his voice was different, stripped of charm, raw with something that might have been fear. Please, we need to talk. We are talking. Not like this, in person, face to face. Why? So you can try to manipulate me one more time. I know I've made mistakes. Mistakes, you built an entire second life, third life, fourth life. You defrauded 4 women out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. You were planning to marry Meredith while you were still married to me. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern of predatory behavior. I never meant to hurt anyone. You never meant to get caught. There's a difference. I took a breath, steadying myself. I used to love you, Raymond. I used to think you were a good man who loved me back. Now I know that man never existed. He was a fiction you created to get what you wanted. That's not true. What we had was real. Nothing about you is real. You're a collection of masks, changing faces depending on who you're trying to deceive. I could feel tears threatening, but I refused to let them fall. I feel sorry for you, actually. You'll never know what genuine connection feels like. You'll spend your whole life performing love without ever experiencing it. Vivian, please. Goodbye, Raymond. The next time we speak, it will be in court. I hung up and sat in the silence of the house we had shared. He had begged, he had pleaded. A year ago, that would have broken me. Now, I felt nothing but resolve. The trial began on a cold Monday morning in March. I had never been inside a courtroom before, not for anything serious. Now I was sitting in the front row, surrounded by 3 other women Raymond had deceived, preparing to watch our shared trauma become public record. Rebecca sat to my left, her jaw tight with determination. Meredith was on my right, her hands folded in her lap to stop them from trembling. Michelle was on the far end, looking younger than her 26 years, still struggling to accept how thoroughly she had been manipulated. We had become sisters in a strange way, bound not by blood but by betrayal, united against the man who had used all of us. Raymond sat at the defendant's table, flanked by 2 expensive lawyers his parents had hired. He looked diminished, thinner than I remembered, with new lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. The confident, charming man who had swept me off my feet was gone. In his place was someone who looked cornered, desperate. Good. Patricia Chen delivered our opening statement with surgical precision. She laid out the facts, the multiple relationships Raymond had maintained simultaneously, the secret apartments he had funded with marital assets, the systematic deception that had spanned years. She introduced the evidence, lease agreements, financial records, photographs, the engagement ring receipt that had started everything. This is not a case of a man who made a mistake, she said, facing the jury. This is a case of a predator who systematically targeted vulnerable women, manipulated their emotions, and stole their resources. Raymond Porter built an empire of lies, and he did it without remorse, without conscience, without any regard for the lives he was destroying. Raymond's lawyers tried to paint a different picture. Their opening statement focused on complicated relationships and misunderstandings. They suggested that the women involved had been willing participants who were now seeking revenge after being rejected. Mr. Porter is not a perfect man, his lead attorney acknowledged. But he is not the monster the plaintiffs are trying to create. He is a man who struggled with commitment issues, who made poor choices in his personal life, but who never intended to defraud or harm anyone. I watched the jury's faces as the competing narratives were presented. 12 ordinary people trying to make sense of something extraordinary. Some looked sympathetic, others looked skeptical. It was impossible to know which way they were leaning. I was the first to testify. Walking to the witness stand felt like walking to an execution, except I wasn't the one being killed. Raymond was, and I was the executioner. Patricia guided me through the story, starting from the beginning. how I had found the receipt for the engagement ring, how I had investigated my husband's activities, how I had discovered the apartment, the other woman, the systematic theft from our accounts. Can you describe your emotional state when you realized the extent of your husband's deception? Patricia asked. Devastated, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. Betrayed, but mostly confused. I kept asking myself how I could have missed it. How could I have been married to someone for 10 years and not know who he really was? And what conclusion did you reach? That Raymond is extremely skilled at deception, that he doesn't experience empathy the way normal people do, that I was just one of many victims, not because I was foolish, but because he's a predator. Raymond's attorney cross-examined me aggressively, trying to paint me as a vindictive wife who had invaded her husband's privacy and was now exaggerating his behavior for financial gain. Isn't it true, Mrs. Porter, that you went through your husband's personal belongings without his knowledge or consent? I went through our laundry. The receipt was in a jacket pocket. And then you accessed his financial accounts without authorization. They were joint accounts. I had every right to access them. You hired a lawyer before you even confronted your husband about what you had found. Doesn't that suggest you were already planning to divorce him, regardless of any explanation he might have offered? It suggests I was protecting myself. Given what I had discovered, that seems like a reasonable precaution. Or perhaps you had already decided to destroy him and were simply gathering ammunition. Patricia objected. The judge sustained, but the implication lingered in the air. The other women testified over the following days. Rebecca went first among them. She was calm, composed, devastating in her precision. She detailed 3 years of lies, promises of marriage that never materialized, money she had loaned him that was never repaid, the apartment he had installed her in like a doll in a dollhouse. He told me I was the love of his life, she said, her voice wavering for the first time. He told me we would be together as soon as his divorce was finalized. I believed him because I wanted to believe, because he was so convincing. Meredith was next. Her testimony was the most damaging because she had been the closest to Raymond when everything unraveled. She described the engagement ring, the plans they had made, the shock of discovering that she was just one of many. I found photographs in his briefcase, she said. Photographs of him with other women, women I had never heard of, women he had been seeing the entire time he was telling me I was his soulmate. And what did you do with those photographs? I brought them to Vivian. I knew she deserved to know the truth, even if it meant exposing my own role in her husband's infidelity. Michelle was the most emotional. She broke down twice during her testimony, requiring brief recesses to compose herself. But her very vulnerability was powerful. A young woman who had been systematically groomed by a man twice her age promised a future that was never going to materialize. He knew exactly what to say, she sobbed. He made me feel special, chosen, like I was the only person who truly understood him. Now I realize he was saying the same things to at least 3 other women at the same time. Then came the financial evidence. Patricia called a forensic accountant to the stand, a gray-haired woman named Dr. Helen Marchetti, who had spent her career tracing hidden assets and exposing financial fraud. Based on your analysis, Patricia asked, how much money did Raymond Porter divert from marital assets over the course of his marriage? Approximately $287,000, Dr. Marchetti replied. This includes direct transfers to personal accounts, payments for undisclosed real estate, cash withdrawals that cannot be accounted for, and purchases of jewelry and other luxury items. And can you determine where this money went? The majority was used to maintain 4 separate households and relationships. Mr. Porter was paying rent on 3 apartments in addition to the marital home, providing financial support to multiple women, and purchasing gifts and other items consistent with the maintenance of romantic relationships. In your professional opinion, was this diversion of assets accidental or intentional? It was absolutely intentional. The transfers were carefully structured to avoid detection. Money was moved in amounts just under reporting thresholds. Multiple accounts were used to obscure the trail. This was not someone who lost track of his spending. This was someone who was systematically hiding his activities. The jury was riveted. I could see them doing the math in their heads. $287,000 stolen from a family, used to fund a secret life of deception. Raymond took the stand in his own defense. It was a risky strategy. His lawyers had debated it extensively. But Raymond insisted. He believed, even now, that he could charm his way out of anything, that the same skills that had allowed him to deceive 4 women for years would work on 12 strangers. He was wrong. Under direct examination, he presented himself as a flawed man who had made mistakes but never intended to hurt anyone. He spoke of complicated feelings and emotional confusion. He claimed that each relationship had started innocently and escalated beyond his control. "I'm not proud of what I did," he said, his voice carefully modulated to convey remorse. "I hurt people I cared about. I made choices that I deeply regret. But I never set out to defraud anyone. I never saw myself as a predator." Then Patricia began her cross-examination. "Mr. Porter, you testified that you never intended to defraud anyone. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And yet you maintained 4 separate romantic relationships for years without any of the women involved knowing about the others. How is that not intentional deception?" "I was confused about my feelings. I didn't know how to end things." "So your solution was to continue lying to all of them indefinitely." "I was going to figure it out. I just needed time." "Time?" Patricia picked up a document from her table. "Mr. Porter, I'm showing you a receipt from Brennan's Fine Jewelers for an 18-carat white gold diamond solitaire engagement ring. The purchase price was $12,400. Can you confirm that you made this purchase?" "Yes." "And who was this ring intended for?" Raymond hesitated. "Meredith Collins." "Ms. Collins, who you were planning to marry while you were still legally married to Vivian Porter." "I was going to file for divorce." "But you hadn't filed yet, had you?" "No." "In fact, you were still living in the marital home with Mrs. Porter when you purchased this ring. Correct?" "Yes." "And at the same time you were planning to propose to Ms. Collins, you were also maintaining romantic relationships with Rebecca Chen and Michelle Torres. Correct?" Raymond's composure was cracking. "Yes." "So you were planning to marry one woman while sleeping with 2 others and still legally married to a 4th. Is that your idea of emotional confusion?" "It's complicated." "It's fraud, Mr. Porter, plain and simple. You told each of these women that she was special, that she was the one, that you were going to build a life together. And you told the same lies to all of them simultaneously while stealing their money and their time and their trust." "I never stole anything." "You diverted $287,000 from marital assets. You borrowed money from Ms. Chen that you never repaid. You accepted financial contributions from Ms. Torres under the pretense of building a future together. If that's not theft, what would you call it?" Raymond had no answer. The closing arguments came on a Friday afternoon. Patricia was brilliant. She wove together all the evidence, all the testimony, all the documentation into a narrative of systematic predation. She reminded the jury of every lie Raymond had told, every dollar he had stolen, every heart he had broken. "This man is not confused," she said, pointing at Raymond. "He is calculating. He built an architecture of deception that allowed him to exploit multiple women for years. He stole their money, their time, their ability to build authentic relationships with honest partners. And he did it all without remorse, without conscience, without any regard for the devastation he was causing." Raymond's lawyers gave their closing. They tried to humanize him, to suggest that his behavior, while wrong, did not rise to the level of fraud. They asked the jury to consider the difference between being a bad husband and being a criminal. But I could see in their eyes that they knew they had lost. The jury was out for less than 4 hours. The verdict was unanimous. Raymond Porter was found liable on all counts: fraud, theft by deception, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The jury awarded damages that exceeded even Patricia's projections. $1.8 million total. Divided among the four of us based on our individual losses, plus punitive damages designed to punish Raymond for his egregious conduct. When the foreperson read the verdict, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not vindication. Relief. It was over. The lies were exposed. The truth was public record. Raymond Porter would never be able to do this to anyone else without potential victims being able to find out who he really was. I looked across the courtroom at the man I had once loved. He was slumped in his chair, all the charm and confidence drained away. His parents sat behind him, their faces masks of shock and shame. His lawyers were already whispering about appeals. But appeals wouldn't change anything. The evidence was too strong. The pattern was too clear. Raymond was finished. And I was free. 3 years have passed since the verdict. 3 years of rebuilding. 3 years of healing. 3 years of learning to trust again, not just others, but myself. I'm 41 now. The woman I see in the mirror is different from the one who found that receipt in a jacket pocket. Her eyes are wiser, her smile harder one, her heart more guarded but also, somehow, more open. The divorce was finalized 6 months after the trial. Raymond fought for joint custody, but the judge had seen the evidence, had heard the testimony, had understood exactly what kind of man he was. I was awarded sole custody of Zoe and Caleb, with Raymond granted supervised visitation twice a month. He shows up sometimes, misses other appointments. The children have learned not to expect consistency from their father. It breaks my heart, but it would break more if I had forced them to maintain a relationship with a man incapable of genuine love. The money from the verdict arrived in installments. Raymond's assets were liquidated. His retirement accounts were seized. His parents eventually paid a portion of what he couldn't cover, desperate to avoid seeing their son face criminal charges on top of civil liability. My share came to approximately $620,000 after legal fees, enough to pay off the mortgage on our house, enough to fund the kids' college educations, enough to provide a cushion of security that I had never had during my marriage. It felt strange at first, having money that came from such darkness. Blood money, in a way, but Patricia reminded me that it wasn't a windfall, it was restitution. Money that had been stolen from me, returned with interest. "You're not profiting from his betrayal," she said. "You're recovering what was taken. There's a difference." I chose to believe her. I had to, for my own sanity. The other women moved on in their own ways. Rebecca relocated to California. She sends me emails sometimes, updates on her new life, her new job, the therapy she's been doing to work through what happened. She's dating someone new, she told me recently, taking it slow, learning to trust again. "He's nothing like Raymond," she wrote. "He's quiet and kind, and he does what he says he's going to do. It's strange being with someone honest. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Maybe there is no other shoe," I wrote back. "Maybe some people are just good." Maybe. I'm trying to believe that. Meredith stayed in the area. We have coffee sometimes, a strange friendship born from shared trauma. She's working with a therapist who specializes in recovery from manipulative relationships. She's learning to recognize the signs she missed before. "I was so hungry for love," she told me once. "So desperate to be chosen. Raymond saw that and exploited it. Now I'm trying to love myself first, so I never need someone else's validation that badly again." That's wise. It's survival, she smiled ruefully, but maybe that's the same thing. Michelle moved back to her hometown, closer to her family. I heard through Rebecca that she got engaged last year to a high school sweetheart who had been waiting for her all along. I hope she's happy. I hope she found what Raymond could never give her. Zoe is 11 now. Caleb is 9. They're old enough to understand some of what happened, though I've protected them from the worst details. They know their father made bad choices that hurt many people. They know he's not allowed to see them without supervision. They know their mother went through something hard and came out the other side. Why did Daddy lie to everyone? Zoe asked me once, about a year after the trial. I had thought about this question, had prepared for it, but the answer was still hard to give. I don't know, sweetheart. Some people have something broken inside them, something that makes it hard for them to be honest, even with people they love. Is that why he left? Partly, but it's not your fault. None of what happened is your fault. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Sometimes I miss him, the old him, before everything happened. I miss him too, sometimes. The person I thought he was. I pulled her close. But we can't miss a fiction forever. We have to learn to live with the truth. Even when the truth is hard. Especially then. I started dating again last year. It terrified me. The idea of trusting someone, of opening myself to potential betrayal again, felt impossible. But my therapist encouraged me to try, and the loneliness had become its own kind of weight. His name is David. He's a widower. His wife died of cancer 3 years ago. He has his own grief, his own scars, his own reasons to be cautious about love. We met at a support group for single parents. Not romantic at first. Just two people who understood what it meant to raise children alone, to carry burdens that felt too heavy, to keep going when every instinct said to give up. We talked for months before either of us admitted to feelings beyond friendship. And even then, we moved slowly. So slowly. Two wounded people trying not to wound each other. I need to tell you something, I said on our 5th official date. About my ex-husband, about what he did. I told him everything. The affair, the other women, the trial, the systematic deception that had defined my marriage. David listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. That must have been devastating, he finally said. It was. And you're afraid I might be the same, capable of the same kind of betrayal. I don't want to be afraid, but I am. He reached across the table and took my hand. I can't prove to you that I'm different, not with words, only with time. He met my eyes steadily. But I want you to know something. My wife and I were married for 15 years. I never cheated on her, never considered it. When she got sick, I was by her side every day until the end. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know that faithful men exist. Because you need to know that what Raymond did was about him, not about you. You're not cursed, Vivian. You were just unlucky. And now you get to choose your own luck, and I'd like to be part of that choice if you'll let me. We've been together for 8 months now. It's different from what I had with Raymond. Quieter, more honest, less dramatic in the ways that felt exciting at 28 and exhausting at 41. David is transparent in a way Raymond never was. He tells me where he's going, what he's doing, who he's seeing. Not because I ask, though I did in the beginning, but because he understands that trust is built through consistency. I want you to feel safe with me, he said once. That's more important than my privacy. Don't you resent having to prove yourself, having to compensate for what someone else did. No, because I'm not compensating for Raymond. I'm just being who I am, he smiled. If who I am happens to make you feel secure, that's a bonus, not a burden. I'm learning to believe him, learning to accept that not every man is a predator, that not every relationship is a trap, that my judgment can be trusted even though it failed me once. It's slow work. Some days are harder than others, but I'm getting there. Raymond contacted me 6 months ago. A letter forwarded through Patricia. Handwritten on prison stationery, the criminal charges had finally caught up with him, a year after the civil trial. Wire fraud, theft by deception. He was serving a 3-year sentence. Dear Vivian, I know you have no reason to read this, no reason to believe anything I say, but I needed to write anyway, even if this letter ends up in the trash unread. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Prison gives you time for that, if nothing else. And I've started to understand some things about myself that I never wanted to face. I am what I am. I've always known, somewhere deep down, that I was different from other people, that I could turn feelings on and off like switches, that I could lie without guilt, manipulate without remorse. I told myself it was a strength. Now I see it for what it is, a kind of disability, an inability to connect with other people in any genuine way. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't expect it and I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to understand that what I did wasn't your fault. You were a good wife, a good mother. The failure was entirely mine. Tell the kids I love them, if they'll believe it, if they even want to hear from me. I'm sorry, Vivian, for all of it. Raymond. I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it aside and thought about what to do with it. I never responded. Not because I hated him, though I had once. Not because I wanted him to suffer, though part of me still did, but because there was nothing left to say. Raymond had acknowledged his nature, had admitted, finally, that he was incapable of the connection he had pretended to offer. That was more honesty than I had ever gotten from him during our marriage. But acknowledgement isn't the same as change, and I had no interest in helping him work through his issues, even from a distance. That was work he had to do alone, if he was even capable of doing it. I showed the letter to my therapist. We talked about what it meant, what feelings it stirred up, whether it offered any genuine closure. "Do you believe he's sorry?" she asked. "I believe he's sorry he got caught. I believe he's sorry he's in prison. Whether he's actually sorry for the harm he caused." I shook my head. "I'm not sure he's capable of that kind of remorse. He understands intellectually that he did wrong. But feeling it, truly feeling the weight of all that suffering, I don't think so." "And how does that make you feel?" "Sad mostly. Not for myself. I've done the work to heal. But for him. For the person he might have been if something hadn't gone so wrong inside him." "That's compassion. You've come a long way." "I've had to. The alternative was drowning in bitterness, and I refused to give him that much power over my life." I'm sitting on my back porch as I finish telling this story. It's evening, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. Inside the house, I can hear Zoe practicing piano and Caleb arguing with his video game. David is in the kitchen, making dinner. He's taken over cooking on nights when I'm exhausted, a small kindness that still surprises me. This is my life now, quieter than before, harder one, but real in a way my marriage never was. I found a receipt for an engagement ring, but he already proposed to me 10 years ago. That's how this story began. A small piece of paper that unraveled everything I thought I knew about my life, a discovery that could have destroyed me. But it didn't. I was betrayed by the person I trusted most. I discovered that my husband was a predator who had systematically deceived multiple women for years. I watched my marriage collapse, my finances drain, my children's father revealed as a man incapable of genuine love. And I survived. More than survived, I built something new, something better. A life founded on truth rather than deception. Relationships based on honesty rather than manipulation. If you're listening to this story, you might be in your own moment of discovery. Maybe you found your own receipt, your own evidence, your own proof that someone you trusted has been lying to you. I want you to know something. The pain is real, but it's survivable. You will feel devastated, betrayed, foolish for not seeing the signs. You will question everything, not just your relationship, but your own judgment, your own perception of reality. These feelings are normal. They're part of the process. But they're not the whole story. Beyond the devastation is clarity. Beyond the betrayal is freedom. Beyond the foolishness is wisdom, hard-won, painfully acquired, but precious nonetheless. You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by how you respond. I want to leave you with one more thought. When I found that receipt, I had a choice. I could have ignored it, could have convinced myself there was an innocent explanation, could have buried my suspicions and continued living in a marriage built on lies. Many women make that choice. Many women decide that the truth is too dangerous, that the unknown is worse than the known, that preserving the illusion is preferable to facing reality. I don't judge those women. I understand why they choose what they choose. But I chose differently. I chose truth, even when truth meant pain, even when truth meant the end of everything I had built, even when truth meant admitting that I had been fooled for years by someone who never loved me the way I loved him. And that choice, the choice to pursue truth despite the cost, saved me. Not immediately, not easily, but ultimately. Because lies corrode from the inside. They poison everything they touch. A life built on deception can never be truly solid, no matter how beautiful it appears. But truth, even painful truth, provides a foundation you can actually build on. Raymond is still in prison. He'll be released in another year, I'm told. I don't know what kind of man will emerge. Whether his time behind bars will have changed him, or whether he'll simply resume his patterns with new victims. But that's not my concern anymore. My concern is my children, my healing, my new relationship, my future. My concern is living a life worthy of everything I've survived. So I ask you now, as I close this chapter of my story, what truths are you avoiding? What receipts are you choosing not to see? And what might become possible if you had the courage to face them? The answers won't be easy. They never are. But they will set you free. The piano has stopped. I can hear Zoe calling for help with her homework, and Caleb has finally defeated whatever boss he was fighting. David appears at the back door with a glass of wine, smiling at me the way Raymond never did, without calculation, without agenda, simply because he's happy to see me. Dinner's almost ready, he says. You coming in? In a minute. He nods and disappears back inside. No questions, no pressure, just patience and presence and the quiet certainty that I'll join him when I'm ready. This is what honest love looks like. I know that now. It took me 10 years of lies to learn the difference. But I learned. And that's all that matters. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you found your own receipt, your own evidence of betrayal, know this. You are stronger than you think. You will survive this. And on the other side of the pain, there is a life worth living. Take care of yourselves and each other. With love, Vivian.